everybody, it's Julie from A Beautiful Horizon, and today I'm talking with my mom again. We had a few questions come in from actually a friend of mine who had a few questions about homeschooling from a beginner perspective or somebody just interested in it. And so I thought this would be really helpful for people who are interested in homeschooling but don't really know anything about it yet or kind of curious. So we're going to be answering a few questions today. The first part of this video series is about 20 minutes long, and I will link that up in the cards right now. And then we're going to have a few more videos. They're going to be answering other questions. So today, our question is, how do you balance homeschooling and the other children in your home as well as being a stay-at-home mom? So I figure being a stay-at-home mom, you probably mean like the cooking and the cleaning and all that sort of thing on top of homeschooling and managing other little kids. So welcome, my mom. This is Brenda McMenamin, and she homeschooled 4 kids, K through 12. I am the second child, so that we had an older brother, and I have 2 younger sisters, and we all survived, and we're all, functioning humans. We're pretty happy with life. So this isn't, um, you know, everything about me. We're talking about, how you can implement this in your life if you want to. So we're just going to have some broad thoughts and ideas that you can take or leave and, do what you will with it. But hopefully some of this will help you. So with that being said, Mom, what are your thoughts on balancing it all as a homeschool mama?
Well, I think it's kind of a growing process, but I'm teaching Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington in my American literature class, and one of the things he stressed was that education isn't just academic; it's not just your head, but it's also your hand and your heart. And I think we've kind of lost that in our present um, education system. And so that I think we need to get back to that is realizing that education isn't only academic, but it's also how you manage your home. It's also character. It's also ministering in the community. And so when you take a broader view of education, it helps you because, especially when you start homeschooling, it seems like you're dealing with discipline and faithfulness and perseverance. Those are all character issues that are going to help your children the rest of their lives. And so once you see that as part of your schooling, it really helps you relax because that's the top priority. And then the chores, working those into your day, that's part of your children's education. And I think that helps. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I know that routines are my jam.
Yes.
we have a lot of we have a lot of videos here on YouTube. I created one um, called "Stay at Home Mom Morning Routine," and I also put out a separate video that was like a disclaimer about that video, which I think is important because we can watch other people's videos and we can say, "Oh, look at their morning. Why doesn't my morning look like that?"
Yes.
And it's like this, like you're floating through your day on a cloud, and like your children bring you your coffee in bed, and that's not quite realistic. So I did put out a video that was more polished, and the little ones were helping me make my bed, which some days that happens, some days it doesn't. But I am working on those things with my kids. I just got my daughter like a quilt sort of bedspread for her bed. For one thing, it's pretty, so she's like, "Oh, it's pretty, I love it." And I was like,
Aw.
"Well, now this means you need to make your bed." And the quilt style is pretty like easy because it's a little more stiff than some of the other blankets that are like hard to pull and tug around to like get straight,
Yes.
So just thinking about that, how can I make this easier for my kids to be able to do it themselves so I'm not, going around making all the beds, like that would be really hard.
Yeah.
And it's not teaching them personal responsibility and that sort of thing, which is part of education. And that's something that we want to talk about here. It's all education and all of it is important. So as far as that goes, I want them to learn how to make their bed. I want them to learn eventually to do their laundry all by themselves. They can feed the dogs. My son used to be the dog feeder, and now that's kind of transferring to my daughter. She's kind of more into it now, and he's kind of over it. So now my daughter is feeding the dogs that she's 4, and my 8-year-old can move on to something else like drawing and put away the dishes. And these little things are really helpful for them so that when they go on later in life, they already know how to, do these things well. And it's not that, of course, public school kids can still do all these things when they're home and everything like that. This isn't like an either or thing, but it's like everyone. This is really important for all of us to make sure that our kids are learning these things so that when they go off and they have their own home, they know how to manage it and they're not starting from scratch, not knowing, what to do and having to learn all these things. So that really takes a weight off of you as the homemaker, and it helps them in life. So it's kind of a win-win. And as far as cooking, it's the same thing. Like my kids can set the table. They can, cut up little things at a certain age. They can use a knife and they can cut things, or they could put the silverware and somebody else gets water. I remember we used to do that when I was a kid. Okay, you go put all the cups on the table, you put all the silverware, you get the plates out, and it was a community effort, and they have self-respect when they participate in doing things like that, and they're more willing to try new things if they help to cook the said whatever you're making for lunch or dinner or whatever. So I think there's just so many benefits to sharing the load, and then it's not all on
That
you
is
and they're learning,
great.
so it's a
I
win-win.
love that. And I know every summer I try to spend a little time with each one of you teaching you new chores while we weren't schooling, and then that way you'd kind of have them nailed down. When we started in the fall, everybody kind of knew their new groove. You know what I was just getting out? I've got the 1828 dictionary by Noah Webster, and his definition of education is education comprehends all that series of instruction and discipline, which is intended to enlighten the understanding, correct the temper, and form the manner and habits of youth and fit them for usefulness in their future stations. To give children a good education in manners, arts, and science is important. To give them a religious education is indispensable, and an immense responsibility rests on parents and guardians who neglect these duties. Isn't that good? I love the part where it says, and an immense responsibility rests on parents and guardians who neglect these duties. At first, that kind of confused me, but I think we've all seen parents who don't train their children, and then they have to be after them and doing things for them the rest of their lives. Whereas when you raise your children well and you train them to do the things that you're talking about, then as they get older, they are happy workers and do more and more. They look forward to being adults, and your job as a parent gets easier. Isn't that phenomenal? And it's really true. Having raised you four children, when y'all left, I was like, wow, it really hit me how much you guys helped me around the house and made everything easier. And that's wonderful because now you're all well-adjusted, hardworking adults.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was helpful for me. I know I've seen that in my life, that a lot of the things that I'm doing and seeing um, on the internet are things that you taught us before it was cool. Can I say before it was cool? I mean, nowadays we have, like, I'll see all these free printables that these organizing and house cleaning YouTube channels or whatever will put out. I'm like, my mom had that printable, but she just made it in Word or whatever. Like, I have those that you gave me, when I left the house. Like, I already had those, and now people are like, here, I have this free printable. I'm like, look, that looks just like what my mom had 20 years ago or 30 years ago or whatever, so maybe it was 20 years ago.
They make them so
So I,
pretty.
and I yeah, they're super like flowery and everything
Yeah.
now, but that was what, it's pretty cool. Like, I do appreciate that. And I do think that it's good for them to see that they can help each other a little bit, like I remember when my daughter was born, my son was already 4 when my daughter was born. So that was kind of a different situation. Sometimes it's harder if your kids are closer together. But still, I mean, like, even a 2-year-old can go and grab diapers and bring the diapers to you,
Yes.
so just having that idea from the beginning that, they are very capable, and they love being helpful, and that just builds something in them that is totally priceless. If they know that they're being helpful, they're going to feel good about themselves. If they feel like they're just, sitting around all the time, and there's something that everybody can do, no matter how young they are, there's something that they can do, and they can, give a little bit here or there, even if they're really young, and that just builds something in them that's really important.
Yeah. When she's asking how to balance homeschooling, especially with the younger children, one thing I always tried to do was get the younger children busy with something, and I would keep some
Hmm.
learning things for them that I would not give them all the time. I'd only give them to you all when
Hmm.
I needed a homeschool. Of course, you were the older one, but so I'd give them to like Amy and Heather when I was doing one-on-one time with you and JD that was special to them that they didn't get all the time, and then that way they were
Hmm.
focused on that, and that gave me time to spend with y'all. And so it really is worth the time to collect those things and organize them so that you have them and get the younger ones busy, and then they're content while you teach the older ones.
So speaking of things to keep them busy, I'm not sure if I've ever made a dedicated video about this, but I've mentioned this in a couple of videos before. Some of my favorite things to keep the little ones busy while I'm working with the bigger ones are an abacus, and I will link these things or similar things below if I can find them. A clock, and then actually my mom got this for me. I have an Amazon wish list, and sometimes she'll get things from me off of that list. And this, I forget what they call this, like an education board, or like, I don't know what they call it, a month board or something. It's got January through December, and then this also has a clock, so you wouldn't necessarily need the other clock. But and then it's got the seasons here. It's got morning, afternoon, evening. It's got the weather and the days of the week, and then the days of the month on top. So you get something like this, and then they would only be able to play with it at school time because it's their school, and you could chit chat about it, sometimes, like when you have a break from working with the older ones, so they can just play with it while they're waiting. Or the ABC Dr. Seuss book, or any ABC book that's like a board books in general, are super awesome for the little ones. You can see that my daughter read through this one a ton. I had to tape it right here. So this one was very well loved. So any ABC book that's going to hold up, they have cloth books or board books that are really awesome. So these can help, or just some blocks can be awesome for keeping the little ones occupied. And also, sometimes I'll put my littlest on my back. I have a video all about different carriers that I used at different ages. So I have like the one for little babies, and then I have like the structured carrier for the over 8 week babies, or it's 8 pound, over 8 pound babies. Once they can sit up, I use the structured carrier, and I put them on my front or my back so that they can fall asleep on my back, really easy, and then I can go lay them down. And that has been like worth its weight in gold. Having a carrier is like the number one thing I would suggest a parent besides
Yeah.
diapers, and things that really, really, really are necessary. So those are a few of the things that help me keep my little ones busy. And then I had mentioned in a previous video, sometimes like if we're in the living room, which is next to the kitchen, and there's like a hallway and then like all the bedrooms, it can get kind of crazy when my little one could get like in the kitchen with the pots and pans, or whatever. So if everybody's kind of like everywhere, I'll just put us all in my daughter's bedroom, which is a pretty kid safe room, with some blocks or something. But then they're just like all in that room, and I know that they're not getting into other things everywhere while I'm trying to focus on one. I just bring us into a smaller space, and it just helps. Some people have a little area that has a little gate around it in your home with some toys that you can just sit in there with your older one with their MacBook or whatever, and let the little ones play in the enclosed area. But that way you just don't have to,
Yeah.
be totally uh, with your eyes in three different places or whatever. So carrier or a safe space is really helpful.
That's really ideal, I think, just to be flexible and to be thinking, but it really is worth taking the time to make sure the little ones are settled as you're working with the older ones.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and sometimes just waiting for nap time. Do things that are easy, or like maybe you're doing your subjects like history and science, during the time when
Yes.
everybody's awake, and those you can just kind of talk about or whatever. And then the other ones, like maybe the math and the language arts, or if you're writing something about your history or science, those would be things that you just like prioritize. What do I need to do during nap time the most, which takes the most
Hmm.
concentration, and doing that during that time. Or, and sometimes this is kind of, I think this applies. Um, Sometimes you have to figure out whether morning is best or afternoon is best to have that be your time for doing school. Lately, we have been going for a walk in the morning, and so we're getting all of our wiggles out, as they say, and that can be helpful. I've seen actually a couple other people here on YouTube talk about doing something active in the morning and then schooling, maybe during or after lunch, and just kind of making it work for your family, your dynamic, your schedule, and figure out what's the best time for your kids when they're the most focused. So maybe it's in the morning when they're fresh and they can focus the best in the morning, and then play after, or maybe you need to get some energy out first, and so wear them out a bit,
That
and
is
then
so
they're more
good.
happy to sit there. So that's everything I have to say today about balancing motherhood and homeschooling. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We would love to do a follow-up Q&A if you have questions about this topic or any of the other topics that we've talked about. And subscribe for sure so you can see my future videos. Be sure to sign up for my email list so that you really do get notifications from me, because that's the best way to make sure you actually get them. So you can click that link in the description box, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye.